Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishnaya. Om. Salutations to Bhagavan Ramakrishna. Welcome to the second class of Unpacking Yoga Teachings and Practices. We're going to speak today about an essential thing called posture. But there's a great deal that goes behind this oft neglected aspect of yoga. Now, we may have some curious ideas about when yoga begins. The Shvetashvatara Upanishad says, when the perceptions of yoga arising from earth, water, fire, air, and space have taken place, then yoga has begun. This is Swamiji's translation of the verse. And then he continues, unto him, unto the yogi, does not come disease, old age, death. Because that person has got the body made up by the fire of yoga. Yogagnimayam shariram, that is the body made out of yoga. The subtle body is completely transformed. And for this transformation, we need to take these certain steps. There are another two verses in one of the Upanishads called the Katha Upanishad. It speaks about the beginning as well as the end. In Sanskrit, it is called Upakrama Upasanghara. That is, the beginning coincides with the end. And this is very important. In any treatise or anything, you find they lay out the proposition and the final, the culmination is that proposition unveiled. So the verses, they consider the keeping of the senses steady as yoga. One becomes vigilant at that time because yoga is subject to growth and decay. It's called tam yogam iti manyate sthiram indriya dharanam. So they consider that to be yoga. So what? When the senses are kept steady, and that steadiness needs a kind of a platform, as it were. The platform is the body. Okay. There's another verse preceding this verse is, when the five senses of knowledge come to rest together with the mind and the intellect too does not function, they call that the highest state. Let me repeat that again. When the five senses of knowledge come to rest together with the mind and the intellect, and the Bhagavad Gita speaks of it like a flame in a windless place which does not flicker. That is the illustration given to a yogi's mind. Okay. Now this stillness, we are just talking about the internal stillness. What happens? There is, paradoxically, the more you can concentrate your mind, as we have mentioned it in our first class, as the mind gets more and more and more concentrated, Consciousness, as it were, appears to expand. That's the reason why the body, the stillness, is essential for the further stages of the internal stillness that is required. So that perfect stillness of the body, of the vital forces, the prana, the senses, the mind, and the intellect, there's a kind of a stillness that comes. This is, according to these verses, is yoga. Tam yogamiti manyate sthiram indriya dharan. Hold it. And we know what restlessness is. And we know what steadiness is. The moment you try to apply control over your mind or your senses or your body, you are employing strength. Swami Vivekananda gives the illustration of, well, let go the reins and the horses, the carriage just plunges forward. And the moment you hold the reins and you pull it back, you are employing strength. So that stillness is not something that's kind of due to lassitude or to laziness or inactivity. No, it's a state of hyperactivity. You've got to hold everything still. This is the idea. I think. Okay. So Sri Ramakrishna says, well, you don't need to sit down straight like 90 degrees, like perpendicular. No. Saying follow the natural curvature of the spine. You don't need to be sitting stiff. You need to sit down comfortably. Swamiji says, and let me quote, that posture which is the easiest for one should be the one chosen. This is important. Sthira Sukha Asanam. Even Patanjali says, that posture which is steady and pleasant. So, Swami Vivekananda says that once we start the study of yoga, there are internal changes going on. And some forces will be awakened. Nerves, those dormant nerves will be awakened. The whole physiology inside is going to change. He says it's going to be remodeled, as it were. So, but the main part of the activity will lie around the spinal column. So he says, hold the body, the head and the neck erect. We'll get down to it. As the Bhagavad Gita also says, Samam Kaya Shiro Grivam, holding the three, the head, the neck and the body straight, in a straight line. It has to be aligned. That's the idea. So he says, let the whole weight of the body be on the ribs, be supported by the ribs. Now, well, if you do it literally, you might break your ribs. Okay. The idea is there are these forces there and they have to be distributed around the place where you sit down. So if you redistribute the weight of your body in the earth, what happens is there will be less pressure on the spinal cord, and so your spinal cord can remain free for internal activities. So the idea is sitting down straight, comfortably, and the natural, you can say, distribution of weight of the body should be done. Otherwise, there are some people who will put the whole weight of their body on the coccyx, which is not advisable. Swami Vivekananda also says, if you see that you cannot think very high thoughts with your chest in, the moment you straighten yourself up, that's a sign of attention. We all know that. When we are attentive, we straighten up. That is a posture also indicates temperament. And this is one of the principal ways to attain that perfect stillness. It's important for us to come to a stage of stillness. There's always that hand-eye, you can say, connection. Your eyes dart about, and there's a hand, your fingers especially, keep on moving. All these things have to become still. We are going to practice it with, I'm not going to leave you just with the theoretical aspect. So I want you, wherever you all are, to not lean on the couch or the chair where you are. Sit down straight, square your shoulders, keep your neck and your head in a straight line, and hold your fingers wherever they are in your lap. If you are going to, you can say, interlock your fingers, good enough. Now, I want you all right now to sit down that way perfectly till I tell you it's okay to move. Okay, you can breathe again. It's important to know that as you can sit down for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, your mind will automatically internalize. It gets inside. So this is important. We will do another kind of stillness at the end again. When we are sitting down straight, we need to direct our gaze. Now, Sri Ramakrishna says, he speaks about two types of yoga called the Vishnu Yoga and the Shiva Yoga. In the Vishnu Yoga, he says that you sit down with your eyes half closed, half of your gaze is internal and half of your gaze is external, and gazing at the tip of the nose as it were. There is a, you can say, reason for it. Because as you concentrate, both your eyeballs as it were, they are gazing down right here or at the center of your chin. Okay. If you notice it, you'll find that is. Swami Vivekananda says wonderfully, like the control of the two optic nerves goes in a long way to control the arc of reaction. I think you got this. These two optic nerves, they kind of crisscross. and they go down there at the back of the skull, brain, of course. So by controlling the optic nerves, a lot of activity, the brain activity, is also stilled. The arc of reaction, as Swami Vivekananda says. Okay, that's the reason why they're saying you need to keep on looking or gazing at a fixed point. But Sri Ramakrishna gives the example of, it's like a hen sitting on its eggs to hatch its eggs. Its eyes are open, but it's looking inwards. There's a kind of a blank look in the chicken's eyes. Exactly the same way, when you sit down to meditate, you will have that kind of a blank look. But you're not blank, of course. The entire attention is within. Now, so much for the gaze. So in the Shiva Yoga, he's saying, Sri Ramakrishna says, the gaze is turned inwards towards the center of the eyebrows here when one meditates on one's inner Atman. Now, that is extremely difficult for beginners. That comes in the very, you can say, final stages of meditation. So, for us, what we recommend and the books recommend is the Vishnu Yoga. It's sitting down, sedate, still, gazing down at the tip of the nose, gazing at the tip of the nose, as it were. But I generally recommend a spot somewhere just outside your chin. Imaginary spot. If you can keep your gaze fixed here, you will find that both your eyeballs, the moment there's a thought in your mind, your eyeballs flit about. If you notice, there's such a tremendous connection between thought and those optic nerves and the eyeballs. Amazing. So this is how we control the thoughts, by controlling the steadiness of the eyeballs. The gaze has to be steady. Okay, this is good. You also notice when you're doing something, some deep thinking, or you're thinking up some answer or solution to something, you kind of turn away or kind of close your eyes momentarily. What you are doing is you are reducing the load of data that's coming in your brain. And when the idea flashes, that flash, which happens in the gamma waves, which is around 25 to 40 hertz. 40 hertz is kind of amazing. It is in this hertz where working memory, then you have attention, and then you have perceptual, you can say, mooring taking place. There's a tremendous cognitive, you can say, activity going on there. Meditation can take you to this kind of level. What I'm trying to emphasize is, as you kind of half close or close your eyes and think, similarly, for meditation, you need to half close your eyes or close your eyes. But internally, you are very active. It's not just a kind of a lazy closing of the eyes. I'm fine, I'm so relaxed. Now it's time to sleep. The brain knows. The moment you close your eyes, it's time to sleep. and you fall asleep and then you wake up from it, then you think, I've been meditating. Sorry, you've not been meditating. So this reduces the load from the external world. And so this okay. Now, another thing which is also important when you sit down, posture, and all the books of yoga, almost all the books of yoga spell it out. Well, have a bath and wear clean clothes and be fresh in body and mind and sit down. Because this is a tremendous internal worship. If it is not possible, well, do it wherever you are, in whatever condition. But the general instruction is, after you feel fresh in body and mind and very good. Swami Vivekananda also says, keep a place separate for this kind of practice. Slowly, these vibrations will kind of take over. And when you enter that room, you will feel like meditating. He's saying, don't let any worldly people get inside. Don't think worldly thoughts there. Keep that place as it was sacred. In case you don't have such a place or you cannot accommodate yourself in such a place, then keep a place and a time. A schedule is extremely important. If you're going to meditate at 7 in the morning, then the next day also you're going to meet 7 in the morning. A kind of a regularity. So the brain is, you can say, subject to discipline. It's a skill, and every skill can be learned, and every skill. And if you look at all the various skills in the world, they're talking about a practice, but they're also talking about a scheduled practice. That's extremely important. So if you want to start with 1 time a day or 2 times a day, try to maintain a kind of a proper schedule. At the same time, you don't need to keep on checking the phones or your electronic devices or your social media stuff just before you sit down to meditate. Okay, let that lie low. Leave it at least. It's recommended 15 or 20 minutes before you sit down still and meditate. You need to shut off everything. Okay? Because as Sri Ramakrishna says, well, if you eat radish, you're going to belch radish. So just before meditation, if you keep on seeing all this stuff, then when you sit down to meditate, you will be meditating on that stuff, whatever. Swami Vivekananda also says, think of your body as strong and adamantine. The instruction is given is, meditation is possible in a sitting posture. Asina sambhavat. Why? Because the meditating person is likened to an immobile earth. What happens is, when you sit down in a posture, you are going to be still and steady. You, as it were, are a part of that earth. You won't go so far in the very beginning. Try to feel yourself as you are part of that particular room, the floor, or the chair even. You're inseparable. You are kind of rooted inside. And your head, as it were, touches the skies. This idea of expansiveness is extremely important. You are kind of rooted in the earth, and your head is touching the skies. And here you sit down in this kind of posture and in this kind of attitude and meditate. We will look at what is the correct attitude to have as we begin to meditate. Okay. And as I've mentioned, we are going to again practice that perfect stillness. And along with that, we are going to fix our gaze here at a spot just outside your chin. Okay. Your eyes are going to be half closed naturally. I don't want you to close your eyes completely. If you are comfortable with half closed eyes, do it. If you are not, then you can close your eyes. Many people are used to the complete closing of the eyes. So, let us start now. So, what you do is, now don't lean back on your chair or anything. That is one of the things that is not helpful. Those who cannot sit down in a seat in an asana, we'll be discussing these things also. But for the moment, keep your spine straight, your neck and your head aligned, and fix your gaze here, just outside your chin or the tip of your nose. Okay. You all have to be perfectly still and gazing there. Yeah. You get the idea. The principal thing is to sit down straight, to be perfectly still. If you feel a kind of itch, control that. Don't go and scratch or something like that. And the moment you are sitting straight and still, you'll find your breathing becoming shallow. That also is an indication of the mind becoming calm. And then as the breath becomes slow, you are gazing here, fixed at a point, gazing outside as it were. That's important. You are not supposed to concentrate on your nose. You are going to concentrate on the self, the Atman, or your chosen deity. We will take this up stage by stage as we come to it. So I'm not asking you to gaze at the tip of your nose or the spot here as objects of meditation. No. Okay. So these are the preliminary teachings and practices for yoga. It's an asana. As we have said, tam yogamiti manyate sthiram indriya dharanam. That is called yoga. This is one of those references, not the first, one of the references in the Upanishads that when you hold the senses along with the mind and the intellect perfectly still, that is called yoga. And one has to be vigilant. Apramattas tada bhavati. Why? Because yoga is subject to growth and decay, because the moment you let go of your concentration, there is a kind of a slip down. So you need to be extremely vigilant. So you need to keep a kind of a steady, you can say, level of attention. And so we need to be vigilant. Okay. This much for today.